You know that one person in your group who laughs when the waiter drops a tray of shattering glass? The one who gets cut off in gridlock traffic by a screaming driver in a dented Nissan Altima, and instead of screaming back, they just shrug and genuinely wonder if that guy is going through a messy divorce. That reaction isn't passivity, it isn't weakness, and it certainly isn't because they are numb. That is a nervous system that has survived a personal apocalypse and decided the aftermath is actually pretty chill compared to the main event. We need to stop looking at these people as damaged and start recognizing them for what they actually are: survival masterpieces. Their brains haven't been broken. They have been rigorously trained by necessity to operate on a frequency most people can't even hear. Think about it. When you have spent years of your life walking on eggshells, you don't just learn to walk quietly. You learn to map the structural integrity of the floorboards before you even enter the house. You learn to calculate the vibration of a footstep to determine the mood of the person walking down the hall. This develops a phenomenon I call aggressive empathy. It is not the soft, fluffy kind of empathy where you feel bad for someone. It is a tactical, high-velocity data processing system. These individuals become fluent in the language of pain. They possess the uncanny ability to read the heavy, disappointed texture of silence. They don't just see a room full of furniture and people, they feel the barometric pressure of the emotional temperature the second they walk through the door. While everyone else is looking at the surface level, the clothes, the smiles, the small talk, this person is reading the subtext. They notice that your smile doesn't reach your eyes. They hear the micro tremor in your voice that says, "I'm terrified," even when your words say, "I'm fine." This is where psychologist Richard Tedeschi comes in. He introduced a concept that completely flips the script on how we view trauma. It's called post-traumatic growth. The media loves to talk about bouncing back, but that is garbage. You don't bounce back to who you were before the trauma because that version of you is gone, vaporized. Instead, you bounce forward. You undergo a radical reconstruction of your entire value system. This is why that person in the yellow hoodie doesn't care about the road rage or the spilled drinks. When you have stared into the abyss and realized how fragile life actually is, you physically cannot force yourself to care about the petty nonsense that consumes 90% of the population's energy. Your priorities crystallize. Suddenly, a good cup of coffee or a purple sunset over the city skyline isn't just nice, it is a spiritual experience. You find yourself tearing up at the beauty of a golden hour lighting storm because you possess a gratitude that is so deep it aches. You are living in high definition while everyone else is watching life on an old CRT TV. But wait, before you start romanticizing this, before you think this is just a beautiful superpower, you need to understand the cost. Because operating at this level of emotional resolution, constantly scanning the horizon for threats and reading the emotional DNA of every person you meet, isn't free. There is a massive, invisible neurological price tag attached to this level of awareness, and the meter never, ever turns off. Your brain is running a background app that never, ever closes. Welcome to the exhausting dark side of post-traumatic growth, where your threat detection system is permanently cranked to 11. You know exactly what I mean. You walk into a crowded, dimly lit restaurant, and before the hostess even grabs a menu, your eyes have already scanned the room, located all 3 fire exits, and secured the one booth in the far corner where your back is flush against a solid brick wall. You absolutely must sit facing the door. Why? Because your nervous system knows that safety is a luxury, not a guarantee. You don't just go on a simple Sunday coffee date. No, you create 17 distinct backup plans for that coffee date. You map out the parking situation, You rehearse 3 different exit strategies in case the vibe gets weird, and you mentally prepare for the barista getting your order wrong so you don't accidentally overreact. Wait, it gets even more exhausting. Let's talk about your profound, almost biological allergy to being perceived as a victim. If someone looks at you with even a fraction of pity, your skin literally crawls. You will bend over backwards, performing Olympic-level mental gymnastics just to downplay your own struggles. You could be carrying the emotional weight of a collapsing star on your shoulders, and you'll still brush it off with a casual shrug, insisting that other people clearly have it way worse. Acknowledging your own pain feels like handing a loaded weapon to a stranger. So, you bury it. You wrap it in a layer of absolute denial, because being the tough one is the only way you know how to survive. But here is where the psychology gets deeply, confusingly paradoxical. Let's look at your relationships. If a friend calls you crying at 3 in the morning because their life is falling apart, you are out of bed, shoes on, driving through a torrential downpour before they even finish their sentence. You are an absolute superhero in a crisis. You hold space, you offer brilliant advice, and you anchor them to reality. But the exact second someone turns the spotlight around and asks you to be vulnerable about your own needs, suddenly, you are busier than a one-armed juggler. You deflect, you change the subject, you make a joke. Speaking of jokes, your dark humor isn't just a quirky personality trait. It is a tiny, calculated rebellion. It is your emotional armor. You drop a terrifyingly morbid joke at a perfectly normal dinner party, watch the room go dead silent, and secretly relish the fact that you just took the power away from your own pain. You turn your trauma into a punchline, because if you are the one laughing at it, it can't destroy you. It's a brilliant, twisted way to maintain the upper hand against your own memories. But that desperate need for the upper hand eventually bleeds into a bizarre, mind-bending relationship with control. Think about your daily decisions. You will stand in your kitchen for 20 minutes, paralyzed by a massive, sweating existential crisis over whether to use the blue ceramic coffee mug or the glass tumbler. The choice feels catastrophic. Your brain spirals into a complete meltdown over absolutely nothing. But when your entire life actually falls apart on a random Tuesday, when you lose your job, your relationship ends, and the world is literally burning down around you, you are eerily, terrifyingly zen. You just calmly sip from whichever mug you finally chose, stare into the absolute chaos, and smile. Because this familiar, catastrophic disaster is exactly why. They are walking paradoxes, tough but tender, guarded but generous, holding the opposing truths that life can be beautiful and brutal in the exact same breath. You see them laugh the loudest in a crowded, neon-lit room, yet their eyes constantly scan the exits. They give the most profound, life-altering advice to their friends, but silently struggle to extend that same grace to themselves. Why? Because they have seen the absolute bottom. They know exactly how fast the floor can drop out from underneath a perfectly normal Tuesday. Wait, do not mistake this hypervigilance for brokenness. It is an intricate, brilliant, and beautiful armor. They shield you from the very storms they had to weather completely alone. They are fiercely protective of your peace specifically because they know the agonizing, soul-crushing cost of losing their own. But beneath that unbreakable, titanium exterior lies a profound and heavily guarded secret. A silent mourning that almost never gets talked about in therapy rooms or self-help books. It is not just the grief of the traumatic events that happened to them. No, it is much deeper than that. It is the profound, heartbreaking grief of losing their pre-trauma self. Think about that past version for a second. The version of them that trusted easily. The one who felt incredibly light, who walked into a room without mentally scanning for threats. The version who didn't mentally rehearse every single conversation 3 days before it actually happened. The version that didn't automatically tighten their chest at every minor shadow of uncertainty. They deeply miss that lightness. They miss the absolute luxury of naivety. Sometimes, in the quiet, isolating hours of the night, they grieve for the person they could have been if the world had not forced them to become a warrior so damn early. It is a very specific type of heartbreak to look in the mirror and realize you can never unsee what you have seen or unknow what you have known. You cannot put the armor down because your nervous system firmly believes it is the only thing keeping you alive. But here is the magnificent plot twist. Listen closely. That devastating loss, it was not the end of their story. It was the brutal forging of something incredibly rare and desperately needed in this world. Their pain did not just fade away into the background. It violently transformed into the most profound compassion imaginable. Their exhausting survival evolved into razor-sharp insight. They did not just heal and move on. They became a lighthouse, a towering, unshakable lighthouse standing on the jagged edge of the deepest, darkest, most violent waters. And here is the beautiful secret about lighthouses. They do not guide ships to safety because they exist in perfect, sunny, calm weather. They guide others specifically because they know the darkness intimately. They stand tall in the absolute center of the storm because they remember exactly what it feels like to be drowning, terrified, and totally lost at sea. They offer a safe harbor to broken people because they know what it means to be shattered into a million pieces. Their existence is undeniable proof that you can be completely shattered and still reflect the light perfectly. Their quiet, unassuming wisdom isn't just a basic survival mechanism anymore. It is absolute poetry in motion. It is a living, breathing testament to the resilient human spirit that absolutely refuses to stay in the dark. You are not damaged goods. You are a beacon. If this resonated with your soul, hit subscribe right now. Click that join button to become a channel member and stick around for more deep dives into the human mind. Because you, my friend, are not alone in being one of those walking paradoxes.